Introduction. This book changes lives. Since 1931, individuals have been meeting to discuss, debate, and apply the material contained in this volume. Since that time, literally thousands of groups and tens of thousands of individuals have found answers to questions that they sometimes could not even formulate. The information has positively affected lives worldwide. A Search for God, Books 1 and 2, were written to be helpful to individuals from all walks of life and all religious backgrounds. Whether a person comes from a Christian, Jewish, agnostic, or Eastern background, these books could reach out with the hope that true spirituality supersedes religious denomination. Admittedly, the group members responsible for this material presented their understanding of universal laws in what may appear to be decidedly Christian terminology. Their primary intent, however, was to explore the oneness of all life and the truths found in the wisdom of the world's religions. The lessons making up this material led the original group through a study of meditation, psychic ability, reincarnation, and universal laws, information that somehow bridged religious differences and found a common spirituality for all souls who are children of the same God. There are no claims to any unique revelation. In fact, a portion of the preface states, "There is nothing new here. The search for God is as old as humanity." Today, individuals from every religious tradition can be found in Search for God study groups the world over. These groups are ecumenical, yet, as we read and apply this material, it's important to remember that many of us may have biases and presupposed definitions about certain terms. Occasionally we may discover that they are not shared by others, nor in line with the Cayce information itself. One key to working with A Search for God is to be open to the concepts and insights of others and not become frustrated by the terminology used by a group of individuals who, more than 50 years ago, stated their insights in a language they could best understand. The origins of A Search for God deserve special attention. In September 1931, a group of ordinary people had a meeting with Edgar Cayce, one of the world's most notable clairvoyants and mystics. The meeting was called because the members wanted a new challenge. For several months they had been studying the great religious traditions of the world. Now they wanted to work more directly with Cayce's psychic information. Some wanted to become more spiritual, others to know if they, like Edgar Cayce, could develop psychic abilities, a few others desired to be of service to a troubled world. But all members of the group hoped to discover more meaning and purpose in their lives. In the first psychic reading to the group, Cayce offered a promise. If they were sincere in their desire and commitment, they could give light to the waiting world. The group members made a covenant with one another and promised to follow certain disciplines to enhance their work together. They would meditate every morning in their own homes, conscious of the fact that the other group members were meditating at the same time. They would faithfully attempt to apply these lessons on spiritual laws suggested by Cayce's psychic information, share their own discoveries about the material with one another, and be attentive to insights and inspirations that came to them individually in meditation. They would submit questions about their own progress, as well as questions on the lesson material to Cayce's psychic source. They would attempt to live what was being studied and to record their personal experiences for possible inclusion in the text they would write. They would not move on to the next lesson until each individual in the group had learned, understood, and applied the lesson being studied. This final pledge led the group into an extraordinary commitment of time and energy. The series of 24 lessons outlined by Edgar Cayce took the group 11 years to apply and compile. Each lesson required an instructive essay that combined a summary of key principles, along with brief reports on how group members had worked with the material. Cayce's promise that the group could become a light to the waiting world was fulfilled. Study Group Number 1, as they called themselves, went on to author this book, A Search for God. Although the first 12 lessons, comprising Book 1, were not published until 1942, marking 1992 as the 50th anniversary of A Search for God, Book 1 additional groups formed soon after the initial lessons could be mimeographed. The remaining 12 lessons, comprising Book 2, were finally published in 1950. This present special edition of Study Group 1's creation is the first time both books have been printed in one volume. The lessons, given in sequential order, begin with cooperation. Although not part of the original series, a 25th lesson on meditation was later added to give insights into Cayce's approach to this important discipline. According to Cayce's instructions, it was placed in the beginning of Book 1. Working creatively with a search for God is much more than simply gaining knowledge of spiritual principles. Instead, this material must be applied, understood, and even lived, so that we can move beyond mere intellectual knowledge about concepts into a true awareness of universal laws operating in our daily lives. When a search for God is approached from this perspective, it can truly facilitate lasting, meaningful personal change. In fact, these 24 lessons have been called one of the earliest and most effective tools for group therapy and personal transformation introduced in the Western Hemisphere. Interestingly, in 1934 a Cayce reading told Study Group 1 that the life-changing insights of their experiences would still be helping people 100 years into the future. Today, nearly 60 years later, that prediction is clearly being realized. Few teachings about the spiritual path have stood the test of time. This edition, A Search for God, is one of them. Note: numbers at the end of quotes are file numbers of psychic readings by Edgar Cayce. The original readings are in the custody of the Edgar Cayce Foundation, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Bible references are taken from the King James Version. PA refers to a personal experience. PR refers to a psychic reading. In some instances in the text of this edition, nouns and pronouns have been modified from the male gender to be inclusive of both genders, that is, mankind to humankind. Preface. Try living the precepts of this book. Here is a unique compilation of information dealing with spiritual laws of daily living. Why is it unique? The manuscript resulted from the study and work of the original Study Group 1 of the Association for Research and Enlightenment Incorporated, Virginia Beach, Virginia. It was written not by one person but by many individuals. The affirmations and basic discourses under each chapter heading came from general readings given by Edgar Cayce. Questions were asked and experiences during meditation explained in subsequent readings for 12 people. To these individuals it brought hope, peace, a better understanding of their fellow human beings, and an inner joy and a greater awareness of attunement with the Creator. There is nothing new here. The search for God is as old as humanity. This book is passed on in the hope that through it, during the trying times ahead, many may glimpse a ray of light, that in other hearts, it may awaken a new hope and vision of a better world, through application of His laws in daily life. Prayer. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
The following information is from the book Creative Meditation by Richard Peterson. Pages 235 to 243. Tables of information for healing through spiritual centers. The Pituitary Center. Location: behind forehead, slightly above eyes, toward the center of your head. Energy vortices. One extends forward from forehead into aura, second extends outward from back of head near base of skull. Position of hands: left hand on solar plexus and right hand on forehead and vortex, or both hands cupping the front vortex. Associated physical functions: all other glands, cell growth and change, especially from emotional and psychological influences. Associated mental and emotional functions: higher psychic functioning and ESP, selflessness, enthusiasm, capacity to visualize and understand mental concepts, ability to carry out ideas in a practical way. Also see cell influence and associated physical functions above. Associated spiritual functions and ideas: spiritual ideals, soul's purpose, true identity of self, service and dedication. Faith and inner knowing, spiritual ecstasy and peace, perfect impersonal love. Symbolic color of center: violet. Positive external color influence: white, true green, a limited amount of violet, the metal gold. Sound to resonate area of center: E. Sound or chant to influence center positively. Silence, sound of brass or metal trumpet, chanting softly at fairly high pitch 3 times activates pituitary, pineal, thyroid, and thymus. Meditative attitude. Service to others and to God. Faith in one's spiritual nature and in the goodness of all peoples, communion with the spiritual ideal, consideration of the soul's purpose. Phrases for affirmations. Your own spiritual ideal. Service to the glory of God. A channel of blessing to others, and thus to God. Here am I, send me. Open my heart to the faith you have implanted in all who seek to know you. Make me more aware of God as love. The Pineal Center. Location. Below crown at top of head, behind pituitary. Energy vortex. One extends upward from crown of head. Position of hands. Left hand on solar plexus and right hand on head at crown and vortex, or both hands encircling the crown vortex. Associated physical functions. Strong relationship to cells of Leydig center, has the specific impulse that gives light inwardly, gastrointestinal system, stomach, ovulation cycle in females. Associated mental and emotional functions. Quick, useful intelligence, discernment, mind is a tool of spirit, as in the spirit is life, the mind is the builder. Memory, control of bodily appetites. Associated spiritual functions and ideas. Attunement to selfless purpose, connection with spirituality, intuition and higher psychic abilities, memory of oneness, the faculty by which the Akasha is contacted. Symbolic color of center. Indigo. Positive external color influence. White, yellow, sunlight. Sound to resonate area of center. M. Sung in upper register or falsetto. Sound or chant to influence center positively. Gentle sounds, tinkling bells, piccolo, flute, harp, siam chant under pituitary. Meditative attitude. Devotion to set the body at peace and the mind at service, understanding that the mind, not merely the intellect and spirit are holy, being conscious of God, receptivity to psychic information, visualizing transformation of energy from cells of Leydig, silence. Phrases for affirmations. One with God and with the universe. The spirit is life, the mind is the builder, the physical is the result, as the Father knows me, so may I know the Father, through the Christ Spirit. Show me the way. The Thyroid Center. Location. Throat. Energy vortices. One extends forward from throat, second extends backward. Position of hands. Left hand on solar plexus and right hand encircling front of throat with thumb and forefinger, or both hands encircling the front thyroid vortex, thumbs against the body. Associated physical functions. Constructive use of voice, hearing, sympathetic nervous system, body weight, physical energy level, bronchial and vocal apparatus, lungs, alimentary canal. Associated mental and emotional functions. The will listening, awareness of time, use of words and forms of verbal or vocal expression, psychological energy level. Associated spiritual functions and ideas. Surrender of will to God, awareness of our threefold nature, spirit, mind, and body, inspiration. Symbolic color of center. Blue. Positive external color influence. Blue-green, green, sunlight. Sound to resonate around of center. I. Sound or chant to influence center positively. Chanting especially important for the center high gentle sounds, tinkling bells, piccolo, flute, harp, sitar, music of compassers dedicated to God's service, words of love and understanding, siam chant under pituitary. Meditative attitude. Expectancy of knowing God's will, awareness of body, mind, and spirit. Phrases for affirmations. I have heard thee, O God, use me. Not my will, but thine, O Lord, be done in me and through me. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord. The Thymus Center. Location. Center of upper chest at heart level. Energy vortices. One extends forward from chest, second extends backward. Position of hands. Left hand on solar plexus and right hand spread on the chest at the heart level. Or both hands encircling the front thymus vortex, thumbs against the body. Associated physical functions. Sense of touch, immune system, heart, blood, circulatory system, lymphatic system. Associated mental and emotional functions. Devotion, compassion, empathy, unconditional, unselfish, non-judgmental love, fruits of the spirit, such as gentleness of character, forbearance, and willingness to abide long-suffering, fearlessness. Associated spiritual functions and ideas. Psychic contact with loved ones, arbitrator between spiritual and physical, the fruits of the spirit, see, associated mental and emotional functions above, spiritual love, oneness with others, openness to life. Symbolic color of center. Green. Positive external color influence. Green, mother of pearl, radiant pinkish red. Sound to resonate area of center. Ah. Sound or chant to influence center positively. Siam chant under pituitary. Meditative attitude. Compassion and selfless love. Qualities of the fruits of the spirit, visualization of a rose at the heart center, odor of the rose. Phrases for affirmations. O God, enter my heart this day that I in every way might know your hand, your word, your thought, your love, your truth, your light. Deliver me from evil. In earth as it is in heaven. Let there be less and less of self, more and more of God, in my dealings with others. Make me more aware that God is love, create in me a pure heart, O God. The Adrenal Center. Location. At the solar plexus. Energy vortices. One extends forward from solar plexus, second extends backward. Position of hands. Left hand on solar plexus and right hand open on the back, opposite the solar plexus, palm outward. Or both hands encircling the front adrenals vortex, right hand above, thumb against the body, left hand below, little finger against body. Associated physical functions. Sense of sight, physical protection, health of entire body, body temperature control, circulation. Associated mental and emotional functions. Persistence, determination, drive, strength of positive purpose, control of emotions, ability to laugh, pleasure, expansiveness. Associated spiritual functions and ideas. Patience, faith in the spiritual teachings. In the spiritual nature of every human being, creature, and thing. Symbolic color of center. Yellow. Positive external color influence. Green, white. Sound to resonate area of center. O, in medium to low pitch. Sound or chant to influence center positively. Right also IOMMM, words addressing God, chant Om 3 times at moderate pitch, moderate loudness. Meditative attitude. Visualize the energy flowing freely to all other centers from the adrenals, feelings of joyfulness, desire for a higher direction in your life, admission of weakness of self and the strength of God, transformation of negative emotions into positive uses of the energy. Phrases for affirmations. God grant me the determination to control and transform my emotions just now. Forgive me my debts as I forgive my debtors. Give me the patience, Lord, to run the race which is set before me. Let me find happiness in my love for you and for my fellow human. The cells of Leydig center. Location. Lower abdomen, at or above teats or ovaries. Energy vortices. One extends forward from lower abdomen, near genitals, second extends backward. Position of hands. Left hand on solar plexus and right hand open on lower abdomen, or both hands encircling the front Leydig vortex. Little fingers against the body. Associated physical functions. Physical sense of taste, physical vitality, positive sensuality. Associated mental and emotional functions. Moderation and transformation of sexual forces, control of sexual desire, freedom from temptation, constructive, controlled creative imagination. Associated spiritual functions and ideas. Service to God within your body that its forces are not wasted. Upward surging of energy, especially in meditation. Symbolic color of center. Orange. Positive external color influence. Green, white. Sound to resonate area of center. Ooh. Sound or chant to influence center positively. VIMMMMMM, also IOMMMM, words addressing God, Siam chant under adrenals. Meditative attitude. Spiritual ideals and purposes. Upliftment of consciousness through the upsurging of energy in meditation. Awareness of God, peace, love, and grace. Visualization of light and Christ forces at the center. Phrases for affirmations. Lead me not into temptation. Father, let your desires be my desires. Create in me, O God, a righteous spirit. Let virtue and understanding be in me, for my defense is in you, O Lord. The Glands Center. Location. Lower abdomen, at or above testes or ovaries. Energy vortices. One extends downward from genital area. Position of hands. Left hand on solar plexus and right hand lightly resting over genital area, or hands linked at thumbs, resting in lap or hanging between the legs, partly encircling the gonad's vortex. Associated physical functions. Physical sense of smell, reproductive system, generation of life. Associated mental and emotional functions. Positive purposefulness and passion, industriousness, persistence, clarity of thought, discernment. Associated spiritual functions and ideas. Creative power. Transformation of energy through conscious purposefulness, service at the highest level, devotion to God in action. Symbolic color of center. Red. Positive external color influence. Green, white. Sound to resonate area of center. Sound or chant to influence center positively. La MMMMMM, also IUMMMMM, Siam chant under adrenals. Meditative attitude. Realization of your spiritual nature, of being a child of God, turning the mind toward God, peace, stillness, and love, wonder of the creation of new life. Phrases for affirmations. Give me this day my daily bread. Let me be more aware of the divine spirit within. Let the desire of my heart be such that I may be more and more aware of the Spirit of the Father manifesting in me. May the peace and the light and the love of the Christ be my guide. Help me to know the peace that passes understanding.
Meditation. The Edgar Cayce readings repeatedly emphasize the importance of meditation as an integral ingredient for personal transformation. In fact, they suggested that the following information on meditation be added to the 24 lessons that comprise A Search for God. However, to become familiar with the group process, some readers may wish to start with a chapter on cooperation, reading the meditation information individually or picking it up later for group discussion. Introduction. In this material world we are conscious of the phenomenon of growth. We should be equally aware of spiritual progression that includes both a broadening of understanding of the relation between the Creator and ourselves, and a definite improvement in capacities for more useful lives. Too much stress has been placed upon the desirability of escaping from physical existence. The average individual has come to look upon spiritual things as being intangible and ethereal, unconnected with normal life. How may I best develop myself spiritually? Through prayer and meditation. Turn ever to Him, for as He has given, practice daily the love of the Christ. For as He gave, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another. Then manifest that in every way. Let everyone that you meet be happier for having met you, for having spoken to you. This ye can do by spreading joy. This is the manner to unfold, to develop. Then in thy meditation, present thyself as a willing channel, to be as the hands, as the eyes, as the voice of thy master. Please note. If you see underlined text and arrow pointing to a book, then refer to that book for more explanation of this underlined text. The eternal question that runs through life is this. What is truly valuable in thought, in activity, and in experience? Only from within can come a stable estimate of what is worthwhile. This sense of appreciation or this inner realization is based fundamentally upon an understanding of self in relation to others and self in relation to God. Meditation is the means to this end. Prayer and meditation. Prayer defined and illustrated. Some individuals give little thought to either prayer or meditation. They are satisfied to drift with the current, hoping that somehow or somewhere conditions will work out for the best for them. There are others who seek a better way, searching for that light which renews hope, gives a more perfect understanding of their present lot, and justifies the course of life that is being pursued. Remember the injunction, never worry as long as you can pray. When you can't pray, you'd better begin to worry. For then you have something to worry about. Let that as may disturb be taken to him who hears prayer and has promised to answer those who pray in faith, nothing doubted. Prayer is the concerted effort of our physical consciousnesses to become attuned to the consciousness of the Creator. It is the attunement of our conscious minds to the spiritual forces that manifest in a material world. It may be a cooperative experience of many individuals coming together with one accord and with one mind. Prayer to some is the pouring out of personality for outward show, to be seen by others. To others it means entering into the closet of the inner self and pouring out the ego, so that the inner being may be filled with the Spirit of the Father. These divergent attitudes are illustrated in the example drawn by Christ. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee, that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice in the week, I give tithes of all that I possess. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God be merciful to me a sinner. I tell you, said Jesus, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. Meditation is listening to the divine within. For, as given of old, say not as to who will descend from heaven that ye may have a message, for lo, it is in thine own heart. Meditation defined. Meditation is the emptying of ourselves of all that hinders the creative force from rising along the natural channels of our physical bodies, to be disseminated through the sensitive spiritual centers in our physical bodies. When meditation is properly entered into, we are made stronger mentally and physically. He went in the strength of that meat received for many days. Meditation is not musing or daydreaming, but attuning our mental and physical bodies to their spiritual source. It is arousing the mental and spiritual attributes to an expression of their relationship with their Maker. This is true meditation. Meditation is prayer from within the inner self and partakes not only of the inner physical person, but of the soul aroused by the Spirit from within. In prayer we speak to God, in meditation God speaks to us. Will prayer answer for meditation? Will asking a question answer it? No, but it shows that we desire information, and therefore it has its merits. Just so when we pray, we show to our Heavenly Father that we are anxious for His guidance and help, for the manifestation of His promises in our lives. It then takes an attitude of waiting, of silence, of listening, to be able to hear the still small voice whisper within, and to know that all is well. Prayer therefore is the basis of meditation. Only when we are still may we know God, and when we know Him we are willing to say and mean, Thy will be done. It is then that He sups with us. In prayer we ask for cleansing. Before true meditation we must be clean in body and mind, so that we may be fit to meet our Lord. One is a complement of the other. Before I go on, I would like to talk about the resources and books that helped me with this particular presentation on meditation. The actual Edgar Cayce readings, especially 281 and 262. A Search for God Books 1 and 2. You may find 2 separate A Search for God books, A Search for God Book 1 and A Search for God Book 2, or you can get the 50th Anniversary Edition, which is the 2 A Search for God books combined into one. A Search for God Book 1 was first published in 1942. Book 2 was then published in 1950. The combined version was released in 1992. You can find audio and text online. A Search for God paraphrased by L. Nelson Farley. Search for God paraphrased is a rephrasing of A Search for God Books 1 and 2. This book clarifies many confusing sayings and terms. The additional readings helps with any personal study. Copies of this book can be found in A-Books. It is a pity there is no Kindle version. I did try and contact L. Nelson Farley. I managed to speak to his wife. They were willing to convert this book into Kindle, but need someone with the know-how to do so. Contact me if you are willing to help. Experiments in A Search for God, aligned to A Search for God Book 1, and Experiments in Practical Spirituality, aligned to A Search for God Book 2, both written by Mark Thurston. There is a newer combined version which you can buy on Amazon Kindle. Creative Meditation Richard Peterson. 12 Lessons in Personal Spirituality Kevin J. Tedeschi. Beginning the Search for God. Virginia T. Fields and Shirley G. Clemont. All the above are ARE books. Edgar Cayce on Religion and Psychic Experience Harmon H. Bro. This book is hard to read, but rewarding if you make it to the end. The 12 lessons of A Search for God are thoroughly discussed. There are many book covers of this book. Step by Step A Guide to A Search for God Book 1. ARE. Do not allow self, or the activities in this direction, to become mere rote or routine, for one will not find unless they seek, nor will one have the door open, unless they expect it to. Without preparation, desires of every nature may become so accentuated as to destroy, or to overexercise, as to bring detrimental forces, unless the desire and purpose is acknowledged and set in the influence of self, as to its direction. When loosened by the Kundalini activities through the body. Preparation for meditation. The physical body. A knowledge, cleansing, and consecration of the physical body. We are miniature copies of the universe, possessing physical, mental, and spiritual bodies. These bodies are so closely knit together that the impressions of one have their effects upon the other two. The physical body is a composite unit of creative force manifesting in a material world. So all-inclusive is the physical body that there is nothing in the universe that we can comprehend that does not have its miniature replica within it. It is not only our privilege but our duty to know ourselves and to be aware of our bodies being temples of the living God. Should one meditate when not in a good physical condition? As we have given on prayer and meditation, when one can separate self sufficiently, that is, set aside the conscious mind to attune to the superconscious to be able to meditate properly, it is helpful. When one cannot, best not to attempt it. Has my method of meditation had anything to do with my physical condition? No. Rather, the physical condition has had much to do with the manner in which those conditions act in the meditation. A weakened condition of the body may be so overstimulated by concentration in meditation as to overtax the general physical system and become detrimental. But the fault is in the physical and not in the meditations. Supply the energies as indicated, or keep in those environments where the body may be kept quiet and not overtax the system. Please advise how I may through meditation rejuvenate my body. Rejuvenate the physical first. Then we may make a better accord for the mental and the spiritual to be active through same. So seldom is it considered by all that spirituality, mentality, and the physical being are all one, yet may indeed separate and function one without the other, and one at the expense of the other. Make them cooperative, make them one in their purpose, and we will have a greater activity. Individuals have found throughout the ages that preparation is necessary for deep meditation. For some it is necessary that the body be cleansed with pure water, that certain foods or associations, with man or woman, be avoided, and that certain types of breathing be taken, so that there may be an even balance in the whole respiratory system. This produces a normal flow of circulation through the body. Others feel that odors, incantations, sounds, or music are conducive to producing the best conditions. As the current rises through the centers in the body, these outer influences may help to cleanse the thoughts and quiet the mind and body. So-called savages arouse within themselves the passions or thirst for destruction through the battle cry or the use of certain drones or sounds. This is the same force used negatively. The following is an illustration. An engineer, before going into an electric power plant for work, must take off a certain type of wearing apparel and put on another. His mind must be filled with a thorough knowledge and understanding of the mechanism to be handled, lest death and destruction result. How much more is a cleansing and understanding necessary when we seek to attune our bodies to the source of all force? He has promised to meet us within our own sanctuary. One that goes in unworthily does it to one's own destruction. We have the opening of the seals correctly placed in our chart. As each is called, give advice that will help us in properly opening these centers. Interrupting, first, let's give as this. Do not attempt to open any of the centers of the book until self has been tried in the balance of self's own conscious relationship to the creative forces and not found wanting by the spiritual answer in self to that, rather as is seen in the manner in which the book itself becomes as that in the whole body which may be assimilated by the body when taken properly. In these then there has been said as ye have in thine outline. These are well. Do not misuse them. While the method may not be the same with everyone, if we would meditate, we must shut ourselves away from the cares of the world and purify our bodies physically. Consecrate yourselves this day, is given in the law, that ye may on the morrow present yourselves before the Lord, that he may speak through you. As a father speaketh with his children. Have we wandered so far away that we dare not await his presence? Do we not remember he has promised, if ye will be my children I will be your God, and though ye wander far away, if ye will but call I will hear. Anger causes poisons to be secreted from the glands. Joy has the opposite effect. The adrenal glands are principally involved, reacting through the solar plexus to all parts of the body. The adrenals principally, but all of the glands are involved, as a nursing mother would find that anger would affect the mammary glands. One pregnant would find the digestive glands affected. The liver, the kidneys and all glands are affected, though it is correct that the reaction is principally through the adrenals. We must find that which to our consciousness is the best way of purifying body and mind before attempting to enter into meditation. In raising the image of that through which we are seeking to know the will of the creative force, actual creation takes place within us. When we have found a way to cleanse our bodies so that which is to be raised finds its full measure of expression within, we can readily understand how healing of every nature may be disseminated by thought. So, in analyzing all this, first study the variations of what has been the body temperament in thought, in food. For, the body physical becomes that which it assimilates from material nature. The body mental becomes that it assimilates from both the physical mental and the spiritual mental. The soul is all of that the entity is, has been or may be. Then, who and what would the entity have to direct self in such experiences? To be loosed without a governor or a director may easily become harmful. But as we would give, from here, let not such a director be that of an entity. Rather so surround self with the universal consciousness of the Christ, as to be directed by that influence as may be committed to thee. Thus the entity may use constructively that which has been attained. But to prevent physical harm, mental harm. Attune self in body and in mind with that influence by which the entity seeks to be directed, not haphazardly, not by chance, but, as of old, choose thou this day whom ye will serve. The living God within thee, by thee, through thee. Or those influences of knowledge without wisdom that would enslave or empower thee with the material things which only gratify for the moment. Rather choose thou as he of old. Let others do as they may, but as for thee, serve thou the living God. Thus ye may constructively use that ability of spiritual attunement, which is the birthright of each soul. Ye may use it as a helpful influence in thy experiences in the earth. When we have cleansed ourselves in the manner that is to us the best, there will be no fear that our experiences will become so overpowering as to cause any physical or mental disorder. It is when there is no cleansing that entering into such a state brings disaster, or pain, or disease. A study of the glands. When we quiet the physical body through turning the mind toward the highest ideal, there are aroused actual physical vibrations as a result of spiritual influence becoming active on the sensitive vibratory centers in the body, stimulating the points of contact between the soul and its physical shell. Let us trace this activity. When we attune ourselves to the infinite, the glands of reproduction may be compared to a motor which raises the spiritual power in the body. This spiritual power enters through the center of the cells of Leydig glands, located in the genitive system. This center is like a sealed or open door, according to the use to which it has been put through spiritual activities. With the arousing of the image or ideal, this life force rises along what is known as the Appian Way or the silver cord to the pineal center in the brain, whence it may be disseminated to those centers that give activity to the whole mental and physical being. It rises then to the hidden eye in the center of the brain system, pituitary body, which is just back of the middle of the forehead. Thus on entering meditation there arises a definite impulse from the glands of reproduction that passes through the pineal to the pituitary gland. Are the following statements true or false? Comment on each as I read it. The life force rises directly from the Leydig gland through the gonads, thence to pineal, and then to the other centers. This is correct, though, to be sure, as it rises and is distributed through the other centers, it returns to the solar plexus area for its impulse through the system. For the moment, let's consider the variation here in this life force, or as respecting this life force. The question is asked not in relation to the life alone as manifested in the human body, but as to the process through which coordination is attained or gained in and through meditation. See. Hence physically, as we have indicated, there is first the nucleus, or the union of the first activities, and then the pineal as the long thread activity to the center of the brain. See. Then from there, as development progresses, there are those activities through reflexes to the growth or the developing of the body. Interpret that variation, then, as being indicated here. One life force is the body growth, as just described. The other is the impulse that arises from the life center in meditation. As the life force passes through the glands it illuminates them. In meditation, yes. In the life growth, yes and no, it illuminates them in their own activity in life growth. The Leydig gland is the same as that we have called the Leiden, and is located in the gonads. It is in and above, or the activity passes through the gonads. Leiden is the meaning, or the seal, see. While Leydig is the name of the individual who indicated this was the activity. You can call it either of these that you want to. The life force crosses the solar plexus each time it passes to another center. In growth, yes. In meditation, yes and no, if there remains the balance as of the attunement, yes. When we are considering these various phases, the questions should be prepared so that they would not crisscross, or so that there would not be a confusion or a misinterpretation as to what is meant. You see, what takes place in the developing body, or in life growth, which we have used as a demonstration, or have illustrated, may be different from that which takes place as one attempts to meditate and to distribute the life force in order to aid another, or to control the influence as in healing, or to attain to an attunement in self for a deeper or better understanding. These questions or statements are such that they will be confusing to some, but if they are asked properly there will not be confusion. The solar plexus is the aerial gland. No. By the term aerial we mean that impulse or activity that flows in an upward, lifting, raising or rising movement. It is an activity in itself, you see, not as a gland, but as an activity upon glands as it flows in, through, from or to the various centers of activity in the system itself. It is a function. Let's illustrate, possibly this will give an interpretation such that you may understand. In your radio you have what you call an aerial for communications that are without any visible connection. This is not a part of that making up the framework, yet it is necessary for certain characters of reception or for the better distribution of that which takes place in the instrument as related to communication itself. So in the physical body the aerial activity is the flow through the pineal, to and through all the centers. It aids the individual, or is an effective activity for the individual who may consciously attempt to attune, coordinate, or to bring about perfect accord, or to keep a balance in that attempting to be reached or attained through the process. As the process begins in the physical body, it is along the pineal, or it is the same movement that is the controlling or attuning influence from the mother, with the developing forces of the body through the period of gestation. That is the manner, or the process, or the way in which the impressions are made. So, if there is beauty about the body of the mother through such periods, there are those influences to bring about accord. It may be indicated in contour of face. It may be indicated in the process of change in the activity of the thyroid as related to all the forces. Even to the color of hair or eyes, or the skin's activity, the nails, or more toes than should be, or less, or such activities. Or, the influences existent through such processes might make for a lacking of something in the body itself, pathologically, by the attempt to create a normal balance without the necessary influences being available. All of this is what we have referred to as the aerial activity, see. I see. Don't say you see if you don't see. You only had a portion of it. Let's illustrate it in this way, so you will comprehend. Understand the processes of activity through which there are the needs of the aerial in reception. For, of course, it is a matter of vibration in the body, as well as that illustrated in the physical condition. Thus there are activities about a body that is supplying the needs physically and mentally for a developing body, that become a part of the process, see. Whatever the ideal of an individual is, it is propelled upward and finds expression in the activity of the imaginative forces. If this ideal is material, there is built more and more into the body a love for and a tendency towards things of the earth. If this ideal or image is of a spiritual nature, there is spiritual development. Psychic forces are only an awakening of soul faculties through activities in these centers. If an anatomical or pathological study should be made for a period of 7 years, which is the cycle of change in all body elements, of an individual who is acted upon through the pituitary gland alone, it would be discovered that such a person trained in spiritual laws would become a light to the world. One trained in purely material things would become a Frankenstein monster, without a concept of any influence other than material or mental. During the rising of the currents along this silver cord and in these centers, a body may become conscious of distinct vibrations. There are 3 principal motions that correspond to the 3-dimensional concept of the conscious mind. Namely, the backward and forward, the side to side, and the circular movements. These sensations may be very real. They may cause an apparent vibration or motion in the body itself that is simply a movement within the body, without outward effect. Another very common sensation is that of the current or vibration passing up the spine or through the body from the feet upward, or vice versa. These may also be accompanied or followed by a lightness or slight dizziness. It may also be pointed out here that the reactions within individuals may differ, for the composite vibrations of a body acted upon by spiritual thought differ in various individuals. The important point is that a definite physical reaction in sensitive centers takes place. Does the outline of the Lord's Prayer as placed on our chart have any bearing on the opening of the centers? Here is indicated the manner in which it was given, as to the purpose for which it was given, not as an only way, but as a way that would answer for those that sought to be, as others, seekers for a way, an understanding, to the relationships to the creative forces. It bears in relationships to this, then, the proper place. Pituitary, heaven. Correct. In all of its activities these open, for the upward lift of the thoughts of man, as in relationships to that which becomes. How has it been given? He is Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end. Hence as we find in its relationships to man, it becomes then the beginnings, the endings, of all things. Pineal, name. Relatively, yes. Thyroid, will. Correct. Thymus, evil. Correct. Solar plexus, debts. Yes. Leiden, temptation. Correct. Gonads, bread. Right. How should the Lord's Prayer be used in this connection? As in feeling, as it were, the flow of the meanings of each portion of same throughout the body physical. For as there is the response to the mental representations of all of these in the mental body, it may build into the physical body in the manner as He, thy Lord, thy brother, so well expressed in, I have bread ye know not of. A study of vibrations. Before entering further into the discussion of meditation, it would be well to outline a few elementary principles of vibration, which will enable us to better understand many of the terms used and some of the experiences we may have. Science teaches us that all matter is in motion and that the difference in various forms of matter is due to the difference in the rates of vibration. For example, we know that by increasing the molecular activity of water by heating, we can produce another form of matter called steam, that is, the particles of matter in the steam are vibrating, moving, at a faster rate of speed than the particles in water. Now, our bodies are made up of particles of matter which have been taken into them, such as food, air, etc. Various parts of our bodies are composed of different types of matter, vibrating at different rates of speed. The nervous system, for example, is highly sensitive. Our bones are of denser structure than our blood, muscular tissue denser than membrane, and so on. The combination of the vibrations of all of these different parts forms a general rate of vibration for the body. This is constantly changing. Illness of any kind causes discordant vibrations. The higher the rate of vibration, the more sensitive the body is to influences of any kind. As we go deeper in the study of meditation, we become conscious through application of these various vibrations in and through the body and mind. As we attempt deep meditation, spiritual forces within and without the body-mind will at first be limited by the five senses of perception, for only through these can we recognize any manifestation in this plane. Even when we have learned to lay the physical aside entirely and explore wider realms, the concepts brought back with us must be clothed in three-dimensional terms to be consciously understood. Vibrations, which are emanations of life from within, are material expressions of a spiritual influence, a force that emanates from life itself. When a vibration arises, it may act only upon centers within the human body that are sensitive to vibrations, else they may not become apparent. These, spiritualized, are emanations which may be sent out as thought waves, as a force in the activity of universal or cosmic influence, and thus have their effect upon those toward whom, by suggestion, they are directed. Meditate on the fruits of the spirit in the inner secrets of the consciousness and the cells in the body. Become aware of the awakening of the life in their activity through the body. In the mind, the cells of the mind, become aware of the life in the spirit. The spirit of life maketh not afraid. Let us consider the effect of thought upon the body in relation to vibration. All thoughts are constructed at different vibratory rates. As the food we take into the body is important from the standpoint of structure, so thoughts are important as factors that build up the mental pattern. Mind is the builder. It is the construction engineer that molds even the actual physical matter in its higher vibratory forms. We should therefore never use thought vibrations by attempting to make ourselves other than a channel to help others. The mental body. The purging of self. Let us consider what takes place in the mental body during meditation. The mind is the builder, the physical the result. The mind partakes of both the physical and the spiritual. Most of us are aware of only a part of the mind, this we call the conscious mind. Even in the field of psychology, recent investigations have revealed little beyond a bare glance at what is called the subconscious, the storehouse of memory, and the ever-watchful supervisor of the regular functions of the body. There is still another division of the mind. This may be called the activity of the superconscious or soul mind. These are only names that we use in trying to clarify for our imperfect understanding the meanings of different functions of one force. Through meditation we seek to allow our mind to function normally. Through the will we ask the mind of our physical bodies to cease its wanderings and center itself upon the ideal, which will be presented to the higher mind. This ideal becomes the basis for the activity which results. If the ideal and purpose we hold are in accord with the superconscious mind, that which will be of help and value to the physical mind and body will be transmitted into consciousness through some channel of the five senses. Proof of this higher mental activity will come to each of us as we seek to understand. If, however, the ideal and purpose are out of harmony with the soul mind, the opening of the door between the physical and spiritual will result in turmoil within, striking at the weakest point. He has promised to meet thee within the temple of thine own body. For as has been given, thy body is the temple of the living God, a tabernacle, yea, for thy soul. And in the Holy of Holies within thine own consciousness, he may walk and talk with thee. How? How? Is it the bringing of sacrifice? Is it the burning of incense? Is it the making of thyself of no estate? Rather is it that ye purpose. For the purpose of thine inner self, to him is the righteousness. So it is necessary to purify our minds if we would meditate. Think of what we should do to have our God meet us face to face. Would we say, many are not able to speak to God, many are fearful? Have we gone so far astray that we cannot approach him who is all merciful? He knows our desires and needs, yet he can supply us only according to the purposes within ourselves. Take time first to be holy. Don't let a day go by without meditation and prayer for some definite purpose, and not for self, but that self may be the channel of help to someone else. For in helping others is the greater way to help self. Then let us purify our bodies, our minds, and consecrate ourselves in prayer. Let us put away from us hate, greed, and malice, and replace them with love and mercy. Let there be in our hearts humbleness, for we must humble ourselves if we would know him. Let us come with an open, seeking, contrite heart desiring to have the way shown us. Then let us seek to enter. The attunement of self to the whole. Attunement depends upon soul development. Physically, the radio may be an illustration. The attunement on any radio may be somewhere near the same point of another, but on no two, even when sitting side by side, will it be the same, for the position of the sets alters that. So in attuning our consciousness to the divine, each of us must make the attunement according to our own development. Attunement, like all attainments in creation, is a growth. In my Father's house are many mansions, states of consciousness. I go and prepare a place for you that, where I am in consciousness, there ye may be also in consciousness. Proper attunement is necessary for true meditation. A perfect attunement may be made with the ideal, the infinite, when we make our minds and our wills one with his in word, action, intent, and purpose. Let us pray, Father, not my will but thine be done in and through me, and mean it. How may we know we are not in attunement? It is when we have lost interest in our fellow human beings. To be out of harmony with our neighbor is to be out of harmony with our Maker. Does not the Bible say, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there remembereth that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way, first be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and thy neighbor as thyself. The spiritual body. The soul. It is through meditation that we may become aware of the existence of the spiritual forces within, that we unlock the door between our physical and spiritual bodies. Through this door come impulses from the soul, seeking expression in the physical. Our souls are endowed with many faculties that are limited and bound by our impressions in the physical. The soul is always present, always willing to express its true purpose, its true relationship with the Creator. Through meditation we make this possible, we open the way. Thus an entity puts itself, through such an activity, into association or in conjunction with all it has ever been or may be. 4. It loosens the physical consciousness to the universal consciousness. To allow self in a universal state to be controlled, or to be dominated, may become harmful. Some say that we are not conscious of possessing a soul. We should know that each of us is a soul. This body in which we live is only our house for the moment, and then out of it, we go on to other states of consciousness and other experiences. The fact that we hope, that we have desires for better things, that we are able to be sorry or glad, indicates activities of the mind that take hold upon something that is not temporal in nature, something that does not pass away at the death of the body. Such mental activities come from the spiritual center of our being, the soul. God breathed the breath of life into Adam, and he became a living soul. Then, each is a soul endowed with the attributes of God, possessing the power of creation, of being one with the Father, a joint heir with the Son. The ideal. There are as many types of meditation as there are individuals who meditate. For some it is an escape from the trials of the world, for others it is an access to knowledge, for still others it is an approach to God. Various forms of meditation exist, each with its adherents. But the real significance is in the ideal and purpose. The sweetest incense or the most beautiful music will not lift a selfish heart into the presence of the Creator. It is much more important that our minds be free of malice, hate, greed, and selfishness than that some complex form for meditation be observed. Let us not become involved and confused by material means to meditation, but rather consider first the fundamental reason for it and make that reason in harmony with the highest desire we can conceive. There are definite changes that take place within us when we enter into true or deep meditation. There is physical activity through the imaginative or impulsive powers. The sources of impulse are aroused by shutting out thoughts pertaining to activities or attributes of carnal forces. Changes naturally take place when there is an arousing of those stimuli within us, which have the seat of the soul as a home. If the ideal, the image, the mark of a high calling, is a standard which is in accord with the highest aspiration of service which we can recognize, then we bear the mark of the Lamb, the Christ. As we raise this, we are able to enter into the very presence of the creative force. Some of us have so overshadowed ourselves by abuses of the mental attributes of the body that only an imperfect image may be raised within. If our aims of meditation are only to still the physical, the direct method should be used. But this is not usually the case. A higher state of spiritual consciousness is the aim and purpose of deep meditation. It is important, therefore, that attention be fixed upon the ideal which is to be raised. The physical quiet of the human organism will follow as a natural result, and there will be a growth of unity, of inner feeling, rather than separate, broken points of consciousness. Now, in fixing attention upon the ideal, there should be created a desire to reach the highest possible state of awareness, of which the whole being is capable. This does not mean fixation upon the words of an affirmation, but a strong desire that the meeting with the inner self and God be unobstructed and unmarred by other distractions. The quieting of the body should result from an inner spiritual effort rather than from a fixation of consciousness on outer stimuli. The forces. In meditation, more than at any other time, we become conscious of the forces. We refer to them as psychic, occult, intuitive, universal, and so on. These are only names designating the various functions of God. Hear, O Israel! The Lord our God is one Lord. Let us consider, for an example, intuitive force that arises from experiences of our whole being. It can be developed by introspective activities of our conscious mind until it is able to bring to bear such experiences upon our daily lives. We call this entering into the silence. Will this psychic ability develop normally and naturally, or should there be a deliberate attempt? As it were, expose self to its development. Not by force but by entering into meditation. Allowing the influence of the generative force through the glandular system to be raised to the various centers. First for the purifying of self, then for the obtaining of that necessary, through symbol, sign or vision to be accomplished for individual seeking. Those who by constant introspection are able to bring to the surface their experiences as a whole are called sages or lamas. When this ability is made practical by an individual and yet remains spiritual in aspect, such an individual becomes a master. There is much to be gained in the study of the forces through meditation, introspection, or entering into the silence. It is well to have a thorough knowledge of the subject, but never pretend to be mysterious about it. Jesus lived simply, doing good among his fellow human beings. In the abilities, then, keep that faith, that ability to coordinate physical, mental and spiritual phases of human experience. Study oft how ye may interpret those visions, those activities that are gradually becoming more and more a part of thy experience. By entering into meditation. Not by attempting to write, not by attempting to hear. Not by other than going within. Why have I never been able to meditate? I go to sleep. This, as may be found, is the surer, safer, saner way of meditation. For, when the mind is absent from the body it is present with thy Lord, thy purposes, thy hopes. Let thy pronouncements ever be, then, as the beginning of thy meditation, of thy prayer, as may be put in thine own words, but after this manner. Lord, thou art the maker of heaven and earth. Thou hast shown thy love in the gift of thy Son. Make me, then, a channel of blessing through him to others. As we, in meditation, open ourselves to the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, beauty, and might within ourselves, let us throw around us the protection found in the thought of the Christ. When our minds are on God, the Christ, who is our ideal, we need not worry about destructive results. Remember the promise, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. It is I, be not afraid. It is when we hold the right ideal that our problems are solved and stumbling blocks become stepping stones. Open thine hearts to those of the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, beauty, and might, and throwing about self that protection that is found in the thoughts of him. Father, as I open myself to the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, beauty and might, I throw about myself the protection found in the thought of the Christ. Is it possible to meditate and obtain needed information on any subject? Whether you are going digging for fishing worms or playing a concerto. When confronted with difficult situations, how can I be sure the decision I reach is from the light and not my own thinking? As the body recognizes, there is the body mind, the body consciousness, there is also the inner consciousness or soul mind. Ask the question in self in the physical mind, so it may be answered yes or no, and in meditation get the answer. Then closing self to physical consciousness, through the meditation, ask the same question. If these agree, go ahead. If these disagree, analyze the own self and see the problem that lies in the way. How can one direct the vibration culminating in the head to the one they would aid? By thought. Now we are speaking of a purely mechanical, metaphysical spiritual activity that would take place. One has directed their thought to an individual who is to receive the blessing of that power or force raised. They raise within themselves that which may be sent out as a power, and it passes to those that would be in a tune or accord. Were they present, a much greater force may be felt, to be sure, less is the strain upon the physical body. Methods of meditation. We must learn to meditate just as we learn to walk or talk or to develop any physical attribute. We must direct our consciousness through desire, controlled by will. The following suggestions are offered as an outline that may be used by each individual. We are all capable of choosing the form that is most pleasing, most suitable, and most fitting for us as individuals. Our various developments fit us to accept and understand different forms. For some, the simplest approach is the best, for others, a complicated procedure is necessary. There must be a spiritual intent and purpose, a true desire to seek His will, not ours, as we enter in. God is spiritual force and must be sought through a spiritual ideal, set by Him who perfected the way, and who thus became the way. Let His principles be the guide in the formation of the ideal, the image, that is raised within. Please give instructions for conducting a daily deep meditation, with a prayer for use. The activities of meditation are personal. The preparations for same, to some individuals, are just as necessary as the meditation itself. For, as is comprehended in the minds of most of those who seek to meditate, the attitude of the individual is the greater incentive for such. Then, we would first have a regular period. Then, in whatever form is most desirable, cleanse the body and mind. Then, relaxing, gently. Let this be as the theme, though in thine own words. Lord of might, of love, be thou the guide in the things I do and say day by day, that my body, my mind, may fill that purpose thou hast for me among those of my household, my home, my loved ones, my friends, and all I meet day by day. Help me to use each opportunity to be a light bearer for thee, in His name. Keep me, ever. Just what preparation would you advise for the body, now? This should be rather the choice of the body from its own development than from what any other individual entity or source might give. Purify the body, purify the mind, that the principle, the choice of ideals as made by the entity, may be made manifest. Do whatever is required for this, whether the washing of the body, the surrounding with this or that influence, or that of whatever nature. As has been experienced, this opening of the centers or the raising of the life force may be brought about by certain characters of breathing, for, as indicated, the breath is power in itself, and this power may be directed to certain portions of the body. But for what purpose? As yet it has been only to see what will happen. Remember what curiosity did to the cat. Remember what curiosity did to Galileo and what it did to Watt, but they used it in quite different directions in each case. Please explain in detail the steps I should take in this development and meditation that would be most consistent with my inner self. In whatever manner that thine own consciousness is a cleansing of the body and of the mind, that ye may present thyself clean before thyself and before thy God, do. Whether washing of the body with water, purging of same with oils, or surrounding same with music or incense. But do that thy consciousness directs thee. Not questioning. For he that doubteth has already built his barrier. Then, meditation upon that which is thy highest ideal within thyself, raise the vibrations from thy lower self, thy lower consciousness through the centers of thy body, to the temple of thy mind, thy brain, thy eye that is single in purpose, or to the glandular forces of the body as the single eye. Then, listen. Listen. For it is not in the storm, not in the noise, but the still small voice that rises within. And let thy query ever be. Here am I, or God, use me. Send me. Do with me as thou seest. Not my will, but thine. O God. Be done in and through me. These are the manners. Not that the things of the material mind are to be neglected, but remember this. It is the foolishness of God that is the wisdom of man. It is the wisdom of man misapplied that is the foolishness to God. How may I come to a greater realization of my inner spiritual power and the relation of this power to all creative force? That has been given over and over again, here in this. In applying that ye know today. And tomorrow the next step is given. For it is line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. And if ye would have thy God, yea thy better self be patient with thee, then be patient with thy study, yea thy fellow man. For indeed as he gave, in patience possess ye your souls. Then, as ye are manifested before thy consciousness and thy consciousness, become aware of this, not only as ye see the unfoldment of life in matter, as a manifestation of that force and power, ye would worship as thy God, thy companion, thy Lord, yea thy brother, thy portion of thyself, but in time, in space, in patience is the heart of it all. Cleanse the body with pure water. Sit or lie in an easy position, without binding garments about the body. 3 times breathe in through the right nostril and exhale through the mouth. 3 times breathe in through the left nostril and exhale through the right nostril. Then, either with the aid of low music or an incantation which carries the self deeper into a sense of oneness with the creative forces of love, enter into the Holy of Holies. As self feels or experiences the raising of this, see it disseminated through the inner eye, not carnal eye, to that which will bring the greater understanding and meeting every condition in the experience of the body. Then, we may listen to the music that is made as each center of the body responds to the new creative force that is being disseminated, each through its own channel. We will find that, little by little, meditation will enable us to renew ourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually. In what way have I a definite work to perform throughout this world crisis? As first indicated. Making the awareness in the experiences of others, by the writing, by the conversation, by the activity, as to the needs of men everywhere, and every man and every woman, to be more aware of the Christ consciousness, and of the necessity for man to more and more rely upon same. Why have I never been conscious or aware of the superb experience in which I participated during the Nativity in Bethlehem, and later the many contacts I had with the Master Jesus, the Christ? As indicated, and the way, the manner, the means of becoming aware of this in the experience, is through the activities as indicated. Why has it never seemed true as a possible experience in my life? Doubt. How can I become awakened to this awareness? This has just been indicated. Once I am in that consciousness or awareness, should my presence carry instant healing? Not necessarily, though it can be directed in that way and manner. If the life is lived and the purpose is in that direction. Remember the gentle words, what ye ask in my name, believing, shall come to pass in thy experience. Know that to not become aware of the full ability for it being transmitted through self is the hindrance that prevents the entity being capable of making a physical, practical application. Please give me guidance for meditation that will help me reach the consciousness of it having been a reality. Read that which has been compiled from information through this channel upon meditation. Use that form of saying which is suited to thine own awareness. Remember, the consciousness takes the individual where it is, not where it desires to be. But whatever manner of cleansing, physical, mental or spiritual, that seems necessary, that do, consistently, not because any other one person or individual merely suggests same. But prepare thy mind and body as if ye would meet thy Lord and Master. Then sit as in readiness, at designated periods. Talk with him from thine inner self, as though he were physically present, for mentally and spiritually he is ever present. For, he has given, lo, I am with thee always, I stand at the door and knock. This is not merely a saying, not merely a mental condition, but it may be made a reality through the awareness consciously of that visitation, by keeping that trust with thy inner self and thy Lord consistently. Then use it, not in a boastful manner, but let it make thee humble, even as he, though not other than he, who thought it not robbery to make himself equal with God. But know that it is not of self, but as the Spirit moves in thee, through thy attuning of thy body, thy mind, thy soul, to that consciousness. Have you any other suggestion that will help me attain that? Keep faithful. Breath as focus. A paradox. Because you do not normally pay attention to your breathing, the process of paying attention to your breathing can be very helpful in the meditation process. In learning to retrain attention for meditation, many people find it helpful to observe their breathing after completing other preparatory activities and before concentrating on the spiritual focus. As you observe your breath, its rate or depth is not to be altered. Simply become aware of the rhythmic breath cycle. Observe the air going through the nose and throat and down into your lungs on inhalation, and also observe the air as it comes from the lungs through the throat and nose on exhalation. Notice that the breath feels warmer when it leaves your nose on exhalation than it does going in on inhalation. I urge you to experiment with your breath in meditation, both as an exercise and as a focus. Breath is life, and by recognizing it as we seek at-one-ment with life, we honor its transformative power throughout our being. The breath of which the ancient texts speak is more than merely air or oxygen. It is the expression of a dynamic experience of vital force generated with every inhalation. It does not end in reaching our lungs, but continues in our bloodstream, transforming itself into ever more subtle forms of energy conducted through the intricate system of our nerves, and thus it courses through our whole body, down to the further extremities, until we can feel it reaching even our toes and the tips of our fingers, creating a new kind of body consciousness. From Lama Govinda's Creative Meditation and Multi-Dimensional Consciousness, page 121. From breath to ideal. If you begin the concentration stage using your breath as a focus, at some point you will shift your focus to your spiritual ideal. You may find it best to put all your attention on your spiritual focus. As an alternative, you may integrate the value of breath observation with the value of the spiritual focus by synchronizing your spiritual word, phrase, or affirmation to the rhythm of the breath. For example, silently speak your ideal on each inhalation and again on each exhalation. If you are using a longer affirmation, divide it so you can comfortably express part of it during inhalation and the rest during exhalation. Suppose your ideal is patience, and you are using part of the Cayce affirmation on patience. While inhaling, you might say, "Be thou the guide that we with patience." While exhaling, "May run the race which is set before us." Later in your meditation process, after you have set the words of the spiritual focus aside to move into mindfulness, you may find it helpful to use breath observation as a way to keep you mindful. Experiences. In meditation, some individuals experience a vibratory sensation which seems to move the body from side to side or backward and forward. This may become a circular motion within the body, bringing a fullness and whirling sensation in the head. Other individuals feel a coolness upon the head and forehead. Some sense a pulsation in the lower part of the spine. This may come from nerve impulses flowing through the body from the lower genitive centers to other gland centers, which control various activities of the physical body. Let us not force these, but so conduct our minds and the activities of our bodies as to leave ourselves channels for such expressions. Others experience a vibration running up through the body and ending in a sensation of fullness in the head. When we are able to raise within ourselves vibrations that pass through the whole course of the attributes of physical attunements to the disseminating center or spiritual eye, then our bodies become magnets that may, if properly used, bring healing to others with a laying on of hands. A sensation to the eyes is indicative of a healing vibration. Healing of every sort must come first in self before it can be raised in another. A voice speaking to an individual is a manifestation of an awakening within self of the abilities to associate, connect, and communicate with those influences from without self. Then, as given of old, if there will be held and magnified within the consciousness of self the desire for that voice, that presence, which would aid in bringing the various consciousnesses to self, the experiences will be from the universal influences or from his messenger. Magnify this in self and for self. Be mindful that it is not clothed in some other power. Then, finally, there is the passing into the presence of that which may materialize in voice, feeling, sight, and a consciousness of oneness with the whole. Conclusion. If self-development is our aim, then we must begin just where we are. It will do no good idly to wish to be in some other condition or surrounding, for, unless we have mastered our present state, the second will be worse than the first. The first and last obstacle to overcome is understanding ourselves. Until we are fully aware of all that constitutes our existence, we have no right to say that this or that is the aim and goal of life. Our capacities and abilities are of the highest creation. Let us not fool ourselves by accepting anything but the fullest expression of consciousness. Meditation is the safest and surest way to understand ourselves. It is the key to the door which is closed on the real world for most of us. Let us study and know ourselves. It is a command, an entreaty. Let us dare to seek, not blindly but with faith, that we may find the noble self. Our approaches and results may differ, but the same understanding, the same point of consciousness, and the same state of awareness are the ultimate goals. Two attitudes are essential. A strong desire to seek truth. A constant, consistent effort to move forward. Should the Christ consciousness be described as the awareness within each soul, imprinted in pattern on the mind and waiting to be awakened by the will of the soul's oneness with God? Correct. That's the idea exactly. Let us be continuous and regular in meditation. Broken periods of meditation will accomplish little. Be active in holding the ideal and be regular in awakening the inner self. In the end, the reward is well worth the effort expended. Most of us waste hours each day when just a few moments spent in daily search within would bring more peace and joy and more true happiness than any physical activity. Then let us first seek the kingdom of heaven. Where is the kingdom of heaven? It is within. What he gave of old is as true today as it was in the beginning. Let us call on him and know that our bodies are temples of the living God. There he has promised to meet us. Are we afraid? Are we ashamed? Have we so belittled our opportunities, have we so defamed our own bodies and our own minds, that we are ashamed to have our God meet us within our tabernacles? If such is the case, let us set our houses in order. There are spiritual centers in our bodies which are points of physical contact between the physical organism and the soul. These connections are just as real as the nerve centers and fibers which carry impulses from one of the sense organs to the brain. There is a bowl that must one day be broken, and a cord that must one day be severed from the physical body of each individual. The ultimate goal of each soul searching is a greater awareness of God. Through meditation we may increase this awareness in daily life and prepare the way for the change called death to bring us another step forward toward the goal. What is our God? Are we ambitious only as to whether we shall eat tomorrow or as to wherewithal we shall be clothed? We are of little faith and of little hope who allow such to become the paramount issues in our consciousness. Know we not that we are his? We are of his making. He has willed that we shall not perish, but has left it with us as to whether we become even aware of our relationships with him. In our houses, our bodies, there are ways for the approach through the desire to know him. We put that desire into activity by purging our bodies and our minds of those things that we know, or even conceive of, as being hindrances. It has been given of old that it was not for those who would descend from heaven to bring us a message, or those who would come from over the seas, but that we would find him within our own hearts and consciousnesses. Would we ask God to do for us what we would not do for our neighbor? If we would, we are selfish and cannot know God, for as we do it unto the least of our brethren, we do it unto our Maker. These are not mere words, they can be experiences, if we seek to know him. He is not past finding out. If we would know him, we must turn to him, look, hope, and act in such a way that we expect him, our God, to meet us face to face. It is I, be not afraid, said he who came to those seeking to know their relationship with their Maker. Many of us become afraid because of the things that we hear, and we say, I do not understand, I do not comprehend. Why? Have we so belittled ourselves, our bodies, our minds, and our consciousnesses that we have seared and made of no effect those opportunities within us to know our Maker? Let us purify our bodies and our minds. Let us consecrate ourselves in prayer. Let there be humbleness in our hearts, for we must humble ourselves if we would know him, and come with an open, seeking, contrite spirit, desirous of having the way shown to us. When we are shown the way, let us not turn away, but be true to the vision that is given us. He will speak, for his promise has been, when ye call I will hear and will answer speedily. Then when he speaks, let us open our hearts and our minds to the opportunities and glories that are ours. We can accept them through attuning our consciousnesses to the Christ consciousness and meditation. Then we can say and mean it, let others do as they may, but as for us, we will worship, yea, we will serve the living God. Even in those times of greatest trial he is not far from us. He is closer than our right hand. He stands at the door of our hearts. Will we bid him enter, or will we turn him away?